rules the world. Pretty diamonds and pearls, pretty things, pretty moon and stars, pretty near or far, pretty sings, pretty, pretty, so pretty, so pretty, pretty, so pretty, so pretty, so pretty, so pretty, pretty, so pretty, so pretty, pretty, pretty breaks the heart, pretty falls apart, pretty things, pretty, pretty holds the hand, pretty comes to an end, pretty sings, pretty, pretty, so pretty, so 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 pretty, pretty, pretty rules the world. So pretty, so pretty rules the world. Pretty diamonds and pearls. So pretty, so pretty, pretty holds the hand. So pretty, so pretty, pretty comes to an end. So pretty, so pretty, so beautiful. It's so
Check 1 2, check 1 2 3 4. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. 1 second, let me make sure I can be heard before I go too far. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Good afternoon. Welcome. I do have a guest in the house today. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people that may not know who you are.
My name is Erin. I'm a friend of David's. That's about it.
All right, so today, guys, we originally had a guest scheduled to be a part of the conversation today. A good friend of mine, Katie Jones, that I've known 20 plus years. Unfortunately, with the situation that happened last Saturday with our good friend losing their son, we have decided to reschedule the appointment for a later date. And because of that, I didn't want to not jump into the conversation about something as relevant to all of our lives as losing someone. Obviously, this situation is very tragic. Young man, 18 years old, came home for winter break to spend time with his family. And on his way back to school, unfortunately, he lost control of his vehicle and ended up, passing away last Saturday. And so, before we get into the conversation, we're just going to have a quick moment of silence. So, if anyone out there is watching, just um, bear with us as we take this quick moment. All right, thank you guys. First off, let me just go ahead and say shout out to my sponsors, iShotya.com, Icon ENT, the Chayah Fashion, and also New Intentions Juice and Smoothies Bar. Thank you all so much for being a huge part of what I do. And thank you so much for the continued support. If you guys have any information pertaining to my sponsors, please hit me in the inbox and I will get you all of that information about each one of them. We wanted to talk about coping skills and how to um, handle situations like this. I have been in a situation, sir, she has, but never on this platform of things. We both have, children that we love dearly and we take care of. And, just to imagine being in a situation like um, my friend Brooke is
Unthinkable.
yeah, it's just something that we couldn't even imagine. And so, if you are watching, Brooke, we want you to know that we love you, we care about you. Obviously, we are going to be praying for you. If you need anything, obviously, you can hit me up. I'm sure you could hit her up as well. You can hit me up to get to her. We want to be as much as a support system to you and your family as we can possibly be. Yes, we are praying for you. Also, if anybody would like to donate, there is a GoFundMe available for the family. They are trying to raise enough money to pay for the expenses. Obviously, you're talking about, all types of expenses that need to be taken care of when you're dealing with a situation like this. And also, they're definitely not going to be doing any type of work in there with each other, just trying to just console and confide in one another at this time. And so, if you're out there watching, make sure you guys say a prayer for that family, the Garza family. So let's just jump into it. And if you're out there and you're listening, you have any questions about anything, or if you have any comments about the situation, please go ahead and comment so that we can get to those comments. So I had talked to Erin this, and as I was kind of explaining it to her in the situation, and kind of breaking it down for her, like literally she was getting emotional. One thing about her, I know, is that she's dealt with a lot of loss in her life. Obviously we don't have to go too deep into detail, but I do want her to kind of give a little brief, just synopsis, I think is the word. Is that a good note?
Sure.
Good word for it?
Works.
Just a little bit about why this is such an important thing to her, that she be a part of this conversation, and kind of helps with where we're going with it.
Okay.
So
Um, one of the things I think is necessary to address is that, like, the abruptness of this is really what takes a person down. I think because one day everything is normal and the next day it's not. And the person that she is someone she gave life to, and it just completely catapults your whole world into a different universe. And so understanding loss, understanding that hardship you can't. It's not something I think that you can really ever truly understand. I've dealt with two very abrupt deaths in my life. One was my oldest son's father. He was killed in Afghanistan, and it wasn't something that you think you're prepared for that because they're gone. They're overseas. They're fighting a war, but you can never ever prepare for it, no matter how prevalent it might be or how possible it might be. It's just not something that you can prepare for. You just don't know how hard that's going to hit you in the gut. And him and I were no longer together, but it's my son's father. I mean, I really didn't think that I would react the way that I did, but that's what this man made me a mom. It destroyed me. The hardest thing I've ever had to do is watch my son grieve for the other parent. And so I can only imagine being a parent grieving for their child it's just, that kills me.
Yeah, for sure.
And secondly, that my best friend, been unwell for a while, but she's been responding to treatment, and then she was gone, and it's the loneliest I've ever felt in my life. Because it's like it doesn't matter how many people knew her, and her widow, or is a very good friend of mine. But we all bereave differently, and I think that I went completely mute for almost 2 weeks. I sat in my bed and I cried and I cried and I cried, and I didn't know. All I could do was try and keep myself, functional. I knew I had to maintain for my son, but it was everything that I've ever found joy in was just completely sucked out of the universe for that time. Nobody. God takes the greatest ones, I think, because she was, if there's good left in the world, she's it. What is left in this world? And it was really just like, I can't, what I could tell people that are close to the ones that are dealing with, the immediate loss of a family member, or, a loved one, or even a close friend, is be patient, because it's not an overnight thing. And I truly feel that it doesn't get easier. You just find new ways to cope, and put one foot in front of the other, but it doesn't ever dissolve. And also, as far as people who are in direct bereavement of the loss of someone they love, I think that a lot of people punish themselves for feeling like, for going back to work, or for starting to find some joy in something here and there every once in a while. And that's just, that's a killer. That's a horrible way to treat yourself in the aftermath of bereavement, and in memorial of person, because there is no person that you've loved or that I've loved that would not want me to not continue. I mean, in essence, that's the legacy of them, keeping them alive in ways that you display whom they were, and their characteristics, and their morals, and their standards, and their beauty. That's like, be the light, their light shining through you,
Yeah.
I mean, I know I had a hard time being happy for a while, and or even like talking about things that Mayumi and I would joke about, or I had a lot of friends that would message me, and we had tons of inside jokes. And if somebody else had messaged me about one of them, like, I would feel badly for a while. I didn't want to have that joke with anybody else.
Right.
But after a while, I had to come to terms with the fact that, muting that part of myself is like muting her.
Right.
And what a tragedy that would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, when I found out about, my brother passing away. If we're jumping into, just kind of relating, there's no way to relate to what she's going through. But if I was going to even put myself anywhere remotely close to that place, I lost my brother, and it's way different because I didn't know him. He wasn't like like my blood. He was my half brother, but he felt like when we met, because we met when I was 31, and I've told this story a lot of times, but when we were 31, when I was 31 years old, I went to Louisiana for the first time, and I met him, and he took me all over the place. Took me to his barber shop, and I went into his barber shop, and he had a copy of a newspaper article that I was in on his wall, and had my CD, and watch. Every time someone came in to get a haircut, he would always say, "Hey, that's right there. He's got music out. You should check him out." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like really pumping me up, and it just was such an amazing feeling to be around him, and be exposed to how loving he was, and how true he was, and just it was just such a great feeling to have met him, and connect with him, because after I left, I was there for 11 days, and I left, and we just stayed in contact with each other over and over and over and over again. And on my birthday, he sent me a bunch of pictures of himself, and wrote me a card, and sent me $200 just cause, and I was just, and that's more than any of my other brothers. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, like this man,
He embraced you.
he's known of me, but never met me, and the relationship that we had created was just solid. And all my brothers are all solid, but it was just a different type of solid. And when I found out that he was sick and in the hospital, and I talked to him once, and he said he was going to be okay. And obviously, we all think that we're okay when we're not, and we're not going to tell the truth, because we don't want people worrying about us. But he wasn't okay, and it was about a week and a half later, I got the call that he had passed away. And so it was really hard, but they asked me to fly down there and sing at his funeral, and so I did that. And when I say it was probably one of the hardest songs that I ever had to sing, um, it was definitely that. I was on stage in front of hundreds of people I didn't know. I mean, only people that I really truly knew in the audience was my mom and dad. But I sang that song and cried the whole time I sang that song. And when I got off of stage, cried some more. It was the first time my mom and dad actually seen me cry for real, not fake cry when I was getting whippings, but like really, really bawl. And
It's a
so
different kind of cry.
yeah, it was one of the toughest things that I ever had to deal with. Um, and so um, and even with that, I still don't even think I could even imagine being, in a position where I had to bury one of my own children. Um, so, I mean, let's ask some questions real quick. Obviously, um, we've all had these moments where people that have been close to us have unexpectedly left this earth. How do we deal with it? How would I mean, what was the first thing we did when it came to not being in a negative state? How did you cope, knowing that you were never going to see your best friend or your son's father ever
Um,
again?
I think, firstly, like we are all so magnificently different. Like none of us breathe the same.
Hmm.
Nobody suffers through loss, or grows stronger through loss the exact same way. They say there's 7 stages of bereavement, but I firmly disagree. There's so many different stages, so many different ways that people are affected. And I mean, for me, like I said, at first I was really like struggling with like having conversations about the silliness of that her and I, my friendship was about. And then once I realized that I was almost being selfish a little bit, and I just think that it's necessary to be their light, because everybody leaves a legacy behind, and
Hmm.
and so for me, like that what helped me come full circle out of like pretty dark place is just speaking, her light and her laughter and funniness into the universe. Like she used to call me Shuggy Butt. I call your daughter Shuggy Butt now just because she reminds me a lot of her, like just
Hmm.
kind of keeping alive that little piece of her. Just like, if I see something like when COVID was going on, she passed right at the beginning of COVID, and I bought masks that had unicorns on them all over the place because like
Yeah.
unicorns were a thing that were, our thing.
Hmm.
And so just I think for me the way that I was able to find joy again, some semblance of joy, reply to that situation was just to be her light, let her legacy live on through me, through my words, through my behaviors. Like, like I said, she's the best kind of person.
Hmm.
So modeling what I would do, like I think about what she would do in situations now before I move forward,
Hmm.
because I mean, there's not very many people I'd say I could idolize in this world, but I idolized her. I still do. She had a way about her that was just absolutely precious. And so, um, being her light and speaking to her, a lot of times I think people, they shut down and they don't want to talk about that person anymore,
Hmm.
which, I mean, because it's difficult,
Yeah.
but it gets easier. Um,
Right.
and um, a friend of ours, Malin, um, she, the third time I ever really was around her, she had lost her child, and she told me the whole story from beginning to end, and she was so strong, and I was sobbing. I said, how is it this difficult for you? And she said, no, it helps me. It helps me to hear it. It makes him real. It gives his life reason.
Yeah.
And it because she's like, I don't want anybody to forget. And I really, that settled in me in a different way. Like I really admire that. And I think that if people who have lost someone can do that, like, then, we don't really, I don't think we really lose someone. We lose a physical being, but I think we gain a guardian angel of the fiercest sort. And,
Hmm.
and, as I said, like they live on through us. So there's no real loss unless we forget them.
Hmm.
You know.
I think for me, one of the when I think about losing someone, I've lost a lot of people, a lot of people in my life. It's
Yeah.
and
This last couple
and
of years have been rough.
I mean, I really don't. I mean, this isn't about me and what I've been through, but we have to use it as comparison and to get the conversation going. But when I think about one of the first gut wrenching losses, I mean, I went through a lot of them in high school, guys. When I tell you guys, I lost a friend a year in high school, at least one friend a year in high school, and in some of the best people in the world I lost. Like I lost my good friend Joey Hook. He was one of my singing buddies that just randomly got some type of hepatitis, and they had no idea what it was and how to cure it, and so he ended up passing away. But I went and seen him a couple of days before he passed away at the hospital, and so we had an opportunity to grieve with him. Actually, sat in the hospital. I think I was 16 years old when I did that. But I sat in the hospital with him, and he was motionless, and you could tell that it wasn't good. But me and my good friend Marcus Young and my choir teacher, Mr. Brumman, we all went up and seen him in Seattle, and it was one of the toughest things that I had to endure, just being there in his presence, knowing that he may not come back. But it was tough, but it wasn't as tough as losing my good friend Mika.
Mm.
Mika Willingham was a person um, that had a huge um, part of my heart. And I met her when I was in fifth grade. And, she was like the nicest person ever. And, We were fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and all through high school we was tight. She lived right down the street from my mom's. We used to walk to school together. Like she used to come walk me home. We used to go to her house and do the whole yarn thing. Like she taught me that whole
She
yarn
was a
thing.
homegirl.
Yeah, she was cool. She was cool. And we was just chilling. We was cool. We was friends. We was tight. But in high school, we kind of went our separate ways a little bit because she was like doing really well with cheerleading and all this. And I was playing sports. And then I got involved in Young Life at a time when I needed it the most. Um, and so I got saved. I became a Young Life leader. I went to camp. They had a Christian camp in California, and I went to camp that this year. And the year that I went, I got a phone call. Not even a week into being at camp. The camp was for a month long, and I wasn't even there a week. And I got a phone call from one of my best friends, and he told me that she had been murdered. And I was crushed. When I say I was crushed because, like, I mean, she was my buddy. Like she was my top dog. Like, yeah, I talked to her more than I talked to
Ace
anybody.
Boone.
And so when I found out about it, how I dealt with it was the only way I knew how to was separate myself from everybody and just cry and just cry and cry and cry. And so that's what I did. I was working in the kitchen and I was like, I just need a moment. I need a moment. And so I went out into the basketball court and I sat underneath the basketball hoop and I just cried and talked to God. I mean, and for me, that was my way of dealing with it at first. I mean, obviously it was going to be a little bit tougher along the way, but that initial was something that I never felt. I never wanted to feel again. But it's the reality of the world we live in. We're not all invincible. We're not going to be here forever. People are going to leave our lives. Even moving forward. But I think for me, just having that moment to myself to just um, you know just deal with it and just cry it out, just speak to myself, and just be at one with God, and just try to just talk to him about it. And after I got finished doing that, I went back and obviously I mourned. you know Still to this day, still it's hard, but I just tried to make sure to think about all the amazing things that we did when we were
Mhm.
together.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't like we were never a couple. We were the best of friends.
Mm.
And like she was the nicest person I knew. Like, I hung out with the guys, and I had a couple tight buddies, but she always checked on me. She always made sure I was okay. She was always there for me. And I try to make sure that I just, anytime I think about it, I always think about the positives, and not the
Absolutely.
situation at hand.
Yeah.
Because it's the thinking about the negative is what really kills people, and
Mhm.
makes people do things that they don't necessarily want to do. So for me, I would say, if you're out there and you're dealing with any kind of loss, I mean, of anyone in your life, always try to think about the amazing things that person brought to your life.
Mhm.
When I think about this young man, even though I didn't know him personally, I met him once. Um, I think about all the things that he has done. I mean, this young man was, heavily involved in sports, did such an amazing job when he was in high school. He was all about helping the homelessness. He was all about that life. And just to hear all the amazing stories that people have to say about him, he is great. He's going to be greatly missed. And I hope and pray that if you knew him, or had the opportunity to be in his space, that you remember how amazing the person was, that person was, and how much of a bright light he was to the world. And like you said, just because the flesh is he's no longer here in flesh doesn't mean that he has left. He is still here in spirit, and hopefully, he's smiling down, saying, "Hey, don't you guys be mourning about me? I'm over here turning up. I'm still here with you guys." So yeah. So I mean, is there anything that you can think of that was like hard for you to steer clear of when it came to making a bad choice or a bad decision after this happened with, obviously, like, because a lot of people don't necessarily reach out. A lot of people don't necessarily think about all the good times. There are people out there, like I got a comment earlier on my post about the way that they coped with a loss was by drinking.
There's, I can't say that I personally, I don't drink. I don't, there's actually a lot of different, not a lot, but there's a handful of different rather negative aspects to, coping that some people will adopt, and it's, they're odd. Some of them are rather odd, like drinking, obviously, or drugs, or one of the most common is like sexual partners, like because it's a release. It's and sometimes people become very promiscuous and thereafter, and so I mean, there's there's a million different ways that you can deal with it. I didn't personally deal with anything in those in those ways, but I have a friend when I was growing up. A friend, we lost a couple of really good friends when I was growing up, but my friend Dickie and his best friend Ryan, we survived. Dickie died on the river, and we were 16, 17 years old, and Ryan became very promiscuous. And it was very odd because he was a big reserved person prior to that. But I sat and talked with him one time about it because he was really struggling with it. And he said that it was the only way that he felt like his mind was somewhere else and he could let it go. So I think if anybody is dealing with somebody that is going through that, like, it's not necessarily, they're not wrong for it, but it's definitely something that should, be helped, like deter any negative, or maladaptive behavior. You don't want to see somebody drinking themselves into a stupor. You don't want to see somebody turning to drugs. You don't want to see somebody turning to, because it's all numbing. And numbing yourself is, I mean, it's an evil way. It's an evil seeking its way in, so that you're not allowing yourself to feel the way you're supposed to feel. I mean, it's definitely because if you numb yourself, you forget that person, right?
Yeah.
That's, like I said before, like the only way for us to really allow them to have a legacy and for the life that they lived, is to let them live on through us, be their light. So I don't know, I guess the most negative thing I did is just lay in bed and cry. but I had a really hard time speaking about her for quite some time. And anything that is done in malice of that person's life, I think, just really be cautious, proceed with caution, and make sure that the steps that you're taking are ones that are going to create beautiful memories in the hearts of those, yourself and those that new person that you're grieving for.
So you probably had someone that you knew went through something similar, or at least lost somebody close to them. How did you go about being a friend to the person? What is a great way to be a good friend to someone that lost someone close to them?
Be patient. I think patience is a really big ingredient, and be there. Just always be available. I mean, if it's someone that's very close to you, sometimes we can't be the person that helps, but we can be the person that sits there silently with them. I mean, call, check in, make sure, and if they don't respond, then don't let them not respond. If they tell you that they don't want to talk, then they don't have to talk. But always check in, always make sure that they're okay, because I mean, like I said, people handle it in a lot of different ways, and you don't want to let anybody ever go down that dark rabbit hole alone, you know.
Right.
But like there's there's outlets if sometimes people don't feel comfortable talking to their closest people, you know, because of whatever reason it is. Like I said, we all bereave differently. So, you know, if you know somebody that's lost somebody, then offer them help through. There's helplines. Like I looked up a couple of the numbers, and I'm just going to have you post them in the comments. But there's actual bereavement helplines for specific things, for, you know, parent, for child, for you know, husband or wife, like losing, all different kinds of loss. They're everywhere. You can find access to people who are, you know, completely removed from your situation, and oftentimes that's necessary for those that have lost someone, because they if they're speaking to somebody that they know, they feel like that person has got an emotional attachment to them, or that person has emotional attachment to the person that has been lost as well. And it's more difficult to speak freely sometimes. You know, all kinds of emotions are attached to, you know, the person that you're talking to, knowing the person that, you know, they lost. It can be weird. It can be uncomfortable. It can be, you know, it can make it more difficult. It can be sad. It can. So I think that the best way that I've ever, you know, the thing that I've done for those that have lost someone is just to be present, to be available. Like if my phone, you know, Mayumi's widower, Manny, if my phone rings, you know, it hasn't, but if he called me at 3 o'clock in the morning, I would answer my phone, because who knows, he might just need me to see they're silent. Maybe he needs to scream, maybe he needs to cry, maybe he needs to talk about her, maybe he just needs to talk about something else, but he knows I knew her really well, you know. So, but just being available is, you know, really, I think, important.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I want to jump on top of that and just say that's when I found out about all of this. That was the one thing that I knew I needed to do, was at least say, hey, you know, I'm here if you need somebody to talk to. Like, you know, I'm praying for you. And every day since, I've always left her a message just saying, hey, how you doing today? Praying for you. And, you know, for me, I think that's just what I think is probably the best thing that I can do. I mean, it's really tough, but you know, obviously being present is a great thing. Being patient is another good thing. You know, just, I mean, it's hard to think, because I mean, it's like you said, not everybody deals with it the same way, you know, and so not everybody, you know, is about somebody wanting to be in there, and want to be there, you know. It's
available.
Yeah, it's tough. I, I just I just know that, you know, just being present, and I if I can't be there for the person, I'm a very, you know, I'm huge on my faith. I really do a lot of praying, you know, and so I personally just pray for them, you know, myself, and, you know, just hoping hope that they, you know, respond back, because a lot of times they don't. But obviously, you know, like I said, I've known these guys. I was probably 14, 15 years old when I met Brooke and Katie and Serenity and Michelle, their whole little clique. You know, like, we've known each other for many, many, many moons. And so, and when I heard it, I was forward. And so, you know, it almost hit me, like, personally, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't really, you know, tight with her son, like, I'm tight with her.
Right.
And so it's like, you know,
I'm not even tight with her. You're telling me I was bawling. I mean, it's I just can't even. I mean, my heart goes out in so many ways to her and her family, or to her daughters. I mean, they lost a brother. You know, that's heavy.
Yeah.
No parent should have to bury their child ever. It's just it's not right.
Yeah. So Sonia said she just lost her cousin Bo tonight. Shimer.
I think that's
He was a
how it's-
firefighter in Tacoma.
Hmm.
So sorry for your loss, Sonia. Um, Obviously, we are here if you would like to talk, or even sit down for a prayer. I'm more than willing to open up the floor for a prayer. Um, you know, Rebecca's on, and she said, "I don't know the family personally. However, I lost my grandma, and I was devastated. I hope they stay close to one another as they move through this challenging time. Prayers and hugs." Absolutely, absolutely. Looks like there's Sonia dropped um,
Link.
a link that might be to his uh, information about him. Um, but yeah, I think for the most part, guys, like dealing with this type of thing, I think it's important for us, know that we're not alone. A lot of people, go through this situation, but I mean, and sometimes they would prefer to not have contact with others, but it's when you hit your bite up, a lot of times people come up with those negative feelings, and do things that are
Business.
out of the ordinary. And so for me, even if it's just putting a message in the inbox so that it goes off, it takes them off of those thoughts, at least for that one moment. And if it's something positive that they're seeing, then that will help, at least try and catapult them back on the right path, to coping with it and handling it differently. You know, so I mean, for me, I just like I said, I'm praying for anybody out there that needs a prayer. Here, if anybody wants to talk about it, and so yeah, I just knew it was necessary for us to have this conversation, because I think the last couple of years have been really hard on everyone. I mean, I don't know
You've
about
had a lot
y'all,
of loss.
but you know, I lost over 20 friends in the past 2 years.
It's nuts. Like
I mean,
there was a time there where every couple of weeks you were calling. I was like,
yeah, like
what in the
I
world?
lost like 8 friends
That was
in the
nuts.
matter of 4 months.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not trying to, say that my situation is any worse than anybody's or better than anybody's. I'm just saying, guys, we have to be there for one another. We have to be able to handle these situations the right way. There's people out here that are going through hardships and finding out, their person, someone close to them has been, killed or murdered or hurt. And instead of dealing with it the right way, they're going out and killing and hurting and murdering us. And we can't be,
is definitely not the right agenda.
we can't be about that life. We got to continue to lift each other up and, say that, yeah, we feel your pain, even though we aren't in your position. We want to just be there for you any way that we possibly can. And, that's all we can do is just, try and, give you all the affirmations that we can, and, I mean,
Absolutely.
try and guide them through in the best way we can. I mean, we're not miracle workers. We're not, but we're friends. We're family. We're coworkers. We're, you know, old buddies from back in the day, acquaintances. We're people that care about people. So let's continue to do that moving forward. Um, yeah, that's all I really wanted to discuss. Anything that you would like to talk about or say?
Not really. I just I guess I'll put in the comments. I'll put the numbers for some of the 800 helplines that the bereavement helplines. I think that's really a necessary tool for people to use, because if you feel alone, even around family, sometimes it just takes a perfect stranger, because they're outside of the box. They don't have an attachment. So we'll put those in there and just reach out, seek if you're feeling really like it's something that is not, you're not capable of processing, there's things that can be done. There's help out there, and oftentimes it's of no cost if you don't have the ability to afford a counselor, because I mean they can can be pricey, but there's also bereavement therapy. Like when my son lost his dad, he was in therapy for a year. He was in bereavement therapy for a year, and it took that long, for him to even exit. That's where acceptance came in, is a year later. You know, there's a lot of denial attached to it, and so seeking out and finding help. Or if you know somebody and they don't, sometimes you just can't get out of bed. Sometimes you don't have the energy to do anything but just be sad, and that's okay. I firmly believe in any area, any situation in life, like, feel your emotions. I don't think that we should try and control them, because you're really not controlling emotions. You're just stifling your own growth through a situation. So I think that if you feel sad, feel sad. If you feel raged, feel raged. There's rage rooms. Like, go throw shit. Go figure out a way to release it in a healthy way. And if you're somebody that is having a difficult time, like, help them seek out that, because it's a dark hole, and it can close in on you if you don't know how to handle it, if you don't have the emotional tools. Some people just don't have the emotional arsenal to understand it, and so helping them, like it's as simple as writing down the number and putting it on the counter. It doesn't have to be a big conversation. There doesn't have to be any dramatics attached to it. Just be a guide.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for listening with us and being a part of the conversation. If you guys have any questions or comments after we're off, please go ahead and drop those in. Next week, we will be doing 2 sessions of Circle Talk next week. On Saturday, we're going to be meeting with a Miss Jamie Otter. She's a life coach. She's going to be talking with us about mental health, and then we're doing our mental health check for March on Sunday with Ricky Minna. And if you guys have not been a part of our mental health checks, please tune in. We're going to talk race, and if race can be a factor when it comes to mental illness. So it's going to be going to be a really, really interesting conversation, but it's a necessary conversation. So if you guys are available next Saturday and Sunday, tune in. It's gonna be a heavy one next week. It is. I'm really excited. I'm really excited on that. Thank you guys so much. Real quick before we go, we do want to say we want to send our condolences again out to Brooke and Steve Garza for Diego Garza, 18-year-old young man. Losing his life, going back to school, going back to Gonzaga University after visiting with his family, and lost control of his car and left this earth. We are going to be praying for you guys. We love you. Again, if anybody would like to donate to the family, there is a GoFundMe available. I will make sure that link is posted in the chat room. But we love you. We love you, sister. We love you, brother. We love you. We love you guys. And we hope and pray that you guys are doing well. I know it's hard to say that with a fresh blow to your family. But we're going to be praying for you. And if you need anything, we're here for you. So God bless. Be safe, guys. One love. We're going to go ahead and close up shop. Thank you guys for being here. We'll talk with you guys soon. Take care.